Hello, and welcome to Homeschool. Today we will discuss 10 logical fallacies that you might come across when listening to an argument or constructing your own. The goal is to be able to better identify and understand these fallacies by the end of the video. We will also briefly go over inductive and deductive arguments. Unless noted otherwise, all definitions and examples will be cited from the 8th edition of Writing Logically, Thinking Critically. At the end of the video, my teacher's assistant, Orange Block, will have some personal examples for the class to identify in the comments section. Now to start, let's quickly go over inductive and deductive reasoning in arguments. In a deductive argument, the conclusion will follow by necessity from the premises if the method of reasoning is valid. The example the book gives is, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. Notice how the logic deals only in absolute certainties. Now, in an inductive argument, the conclusion can only follow with some degree of probability. The example the book gives is, he has fed me today. He has fed me this next day. He has fed me this day too. He has fed me yet another day. Therefore, he will feed me tomorrow. Notice how this conclusion was not so much of a fact, but a prediction, an educated guess. A great example of seeing these lines of reasoning go wrong is the witch trial scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I will put a link in the description. In the clip, you will see villagers use inductive reasoning, very questionably I might add, to blame a woman of witchcraft. To settle the situation, a wise man will intervene and use his own form of deductive reasoning and scientifically determine whether or not the woman is in fact a witch. Before we start going over different logical fallacies, let's define what a fallacious argument is. It is an argument that may be persuasive but does not logically support its conclusion. With that in mind, let's proceed to the different types of fallacies you might come across. Number 1. Appeal to authority. This appeals to an authority who is not an expert on the issue under discussion. For example, abortion to save the mother is irrelevant because a pediatric surgeon has never seen a case in which such a dilemma has arisen. This is a common one nowadays, much like how many people start to avoid vaccinating their children due to heeding the advice of TV host and former model Jenny McCarthy. Number 2. Snob appeal. Appeals to people's desire for prestige and exclusivity. For example, Pamela is not everyone. The best never is. It's a great way to sell crap. Number 3. Appeal to fear. Implicitly threatens the audience. For example, will there be a job waiting when you leave college? In my opinion, this is another great way to sell crap. Fear of missing out, or FOMO, is often used this way with advertisers. Number 4. The equivocation fallacy. This shifts the meaning of a term within a single argument. For example, we are told that to discriminate in employment or housing is punishable by law, but we must discriminate when we hire an individual or rent an apartment. Number 5. False cause. This claims a casual relationship between events solely on the basis of a chronological relationship. For instance, I joined the Confederacy for 2 weeks, then I deserted. The Confederacy fell. This one's a pretty common fallacy. When people talk about getting correlation and causation mixed up, this is often what they mean. Number 6. False dilemma. This fallacy presents 2 and only 2 alternatives for consideration while other possibilities exist. Lennon or McCartney, Monroe or Bardot, Hemingway or Fitzgerald, Ford or Young. Oftentimes when, in my circle, people talk about who's the greatest basketball player of all time, it usually boils down to LeBron James or Michael Jordan ad nauseum. When honestly, there are many great artists of the hardwood that can claim the title of greatest. It's really just an opinion, personal preference, What kind of style do you like? What kind of expression do you like to see in basketball? The only wrong answer that you can really come up with is Kobe Bryant. Number 7. Hasty generalization. This generalizes from a sample that is too small or in some other way unrepresentative of the target population. This is also commonly known as stereotyping. For example, students in Professor Hall's 8 o'clock freshman composition class are often late. Today's college students are irresponsible and unreliable. Number 8. Personal attack, also known as ad hominem. These attack the person representing the argument rather than the argument itself. For example, because Rachel Carson has no children, she cannot have concern for the effect of insecticides and pesticides on future generations. Number 9. Slippery slope. This fallacy claims that an action should be avoided because it will lead to a series of extremely undesirable consequences. For example, what seems like reasonable restrictions on guns with no legitimate civilian purpose will lead inevitably to total prohibition of gun ownership that ends in virtual slavery at the hands of a totalitarian regime. Sorry, I couldn't even get through that one. It's too funny. Number 10. Straw man. This fallacy creates and then attacks a distorted version of the opposition's argument. For example, the Democratic candidate wants the federal government to house everyone, feed everyone, care for everyone's children, and provide medical care for everyone. And he's going to take 50% of every dime you make to do it. So those were 10 of the most common logical fallacies that you're going to see in arguments. With what you know now, here are some personal examples of fallacious arguments Orange Block, my teacher's assistant, is quite famous for. Feel free to comment which logical fallacies these use and why. And it can certainly be more than one. Example number 1. Nobody has better respect for intelligence than Orange Block. Number 2. In response to the white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, Orange Block said, "Yes, I think there's blame on both sides." And lastly, in response to immigration to the United States, "Why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here?" Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Class dismissed.